Hello, friends and listeners. In today's episode, we are honored to welcome our guest, Mrs. Barbara Ericson. She is the Assistant Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science for the College of Engineering at the University of Michigan. Dr. Ericson completed her PhD at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta, her Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science at Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan, and earned her Master's of Science in Computer Science at the University of Michigan. She has served on the CSTS Board of Directors, the Advanced Place AP Computer Science Development Committee, and the NCWIT Executive Committee for the K-12 Alliance. She has worked in a variety of research labs, including General Motors Research Labs, Bell Communications Research, and the Institute of Paper Science Research. She has also authored several books on media computation, which is an approach to teach programming by having students write programs that manipulate media. She has worked in a variety of areas, including user experience, artificial intelligence, 3D graphics, medical applications, databases, and computing education. She also holds 2 patents in database modifications for case-based reasoning. Dr. Ericson, welcome. We are very excited to have you on our show. Let's talk computer science.
All right.
What a background. Wow. It's amazing. I mean, in the media, we hear there's not enough women role models in STEM computer science, but here you are here. So amazing. Very rare. Probably 5 people in the world.
Oh no, there's quite a few of us now. but the funny thing was when I went to undergrad, that was almost the height of women in computer science. It was almost 40% female. One of my first jobs, we had 8 programmers. We had 1 guy.
Wow. So what happened? What changed then?
I think a lot of what happened was the personal computer and the mailization of computing. That before that, you remember typing was a female thing. Men didn't type. So when the computer first came out, the first personal computers, in fact, the executives said, well, that would have to be for women because women type, men don't type. But of course, things changed over time. So once programming became a very popular field, the salaries started rising. There was a maleization of the field.
That's very interesting because when I was at Harley Davidson, I had a team of over 200 people on my team, and 6 of us were women.
Wow.
So it's like 3%. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing we could do. There weren't any resumes.
Well, you want to get more. That's one of the things I want to do. Get more diversity in computing. It's a fun field. I want people to have that opportunity.
Yep, yeah. For me, like it didn't even matter that there were no girls in some of my classes. Like I was enjoying doing Java, so that's what I was doing. Can you tell me more about your current role at University of Michigan?
So I'm actually an assistant professor in the School of Information with a courtesy appointment in engineering. And I have 3 big things I'm trying to do right now. One is I have this project that I created many years ago to help underrepresented students succeed in high school advanced placement computer science. And that's actually when I first started creating interactive ebooks, which is my other second big thing, is working on interactive and free ebooks, as well as the research behind them. So I'm trying to apply principles from the learning sciences, from educational psychology, about how people learn so that we can improve the learning of programming. And then the third big thing I'm doing is creating online courses so that other people can have the opportunity to take the courses that I'm teaching, as well as the ebooks associated with them.
That's very interesting. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your projects that are helping underrepresented students to get better grades in computer
Yes.
science?
This was a project I started when I was at Georgia Tech. I was a research scientist for many years at Georgia Tech before I decided to go back and get my PhD at age 50. But when I was a research scientist, I was trying to grow the number of students in Georgia that were taking advanced placement computer science A which is equivalent to a college level CS1. And I was gathering the data every year that the College Board releases to say, okay, who's taking it? How many people are passing it? And every year that I was working in Georgia, more people were taking the CSA exam and more people were passing it. But I had somebody tell me what happens if you break it down by race and gender. So when I broke it down by reported race and gender, I found that in Georgia, we had a pretty good number of Black students taking Advanced Placement Computer Science A, but their pass rates some years were abysmal, as low as 3% one year, 3, compared to an average pass rate in the entire state of 40 to 60%. So I said, oh my goodness, we can certainly do something about this. So we started a project called Project Rise Up, where I had undergraduate students serve as near-peer role models, and they led help sessions, both remote and in person, for high school students to learn the content for APCSA and to help them succeed on that course and in the exam. And every year that we ran that project, we would have a new record number of African Americans passing the CSA exam. So we started off like there was about 1720s, we got to the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. I think it was 85 last year.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really impressive. So what is different? Like, is it because they're getting additional help or role models from someone very close to their age? Yeah.
So several things I think happen. In some schools, unfortunately, people are teaching AP Computer Science who shouldn't be, who don't really have the background to teach it. That happens some of the places that we were at. And, the students say, well, my teacher doesn't really know this material well enough to teach it to me well. In some places, the students would say, my teacher's good, but they're overburdened with 30 people in the class, and I don't feel safe asking questions there because I'm just one of 30, and maybe I'm the only Black person or the only Hispanic person or the one female in the course. And so Project Rise Up, so originally we targeted Black students. We had then added Sisters Rise Up for women because women usually fail the exam at a higher rate than men. And then later we opened up Project Rise Up to all underrepresented, so Hispanic as well, or Native American. And in general, that's what we hear from students, is that it helps me either because my teacher doesn't know the content, or I can't ask questions because they're busy, they know the content, but they're busy, or they can't really explain it to me as well as somebody who's closer to me in age. I talk about with teachers, I would introduce some concept in computer science using a checkbook, but I would never do that with students because students don't know what a checkbook is. So you have to, trigger what you're talking about based on what people's life experience are. So it works well when you have near-peer mentors. They can connect to the students because they're closer in age, and they've learned it more recently. They can explain it often in a better way. Students also told us it's where they went deeper into the concepts because we would do, they would cover sort of a surface level in their course, but we could go deeper.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Someone who they can relate to, and with one-on-one few intimidating, it's less intimidating for the underrepresented.
Right. And then to see role models that are like themselves, to see Black women that are succeeding in computing, that are getting internships at Google, that's very powerful, right? I don't know any Black people. If I'm a Black person, I don't know any Black people in computing. I may think it's not for me. But if I now meet people that are only a few years older than me, who are succeeding at Georgia Tech in computer science and going to Google or Facebook or Microsoft, I can say, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can.
So my next question is more about you. I know you already talked about there were a lot more women when you were studying computer science. So can you tell me a little bit more about your computer science journey and how did your personal interest begin in this field?
Started in high school, which is part of why I'm trying to help high school students now, because I took a programming class in high school. This was so long ago, we didn't even actually have a computer. We had to use the dial-up phones to connect to a local college that had a computer, and we had the keyboard things that we would type on with the paper. So it was quite different than it is now. But, I learned the fundamentals of programming in BASIC. I thought it was interesting, but I saw that some of my fellow classmates had a harder time with it than I did. So I thought, well, it's just logic, right? It's math, it's logic. I can do that. So I thought it was interesting, but I was planning to be either a vet or a lawyer. And then I didn't get a scholarship to Michigan State, which was the only school that had a veterinary school. I got a scholarship to Wayne State. They didn't have a vet school, so I figured, okay, I'll be a lawyer because I was in debate in high school. But then I was meeting a lot of people that were seniors that were taking 5-6 years to graduate. And I like, why are you taking so long to graduate from undergrad? And they said, well, I changed my major partway through. And I thought, uh-oh. If I decide not to go to law school, political science, majoring in political science is not terribly useful if I don't go to law school. So maybe I should double major so that I can, change my mind if I want to. So I decided, well, what could I double major in? And I thought, I took that programming class in high school, and I thought it was pretty interesting and easy. My mother was saying, hey, this computing stuff seems to be taking off. Maybe you should think about that. So I started taking computer science classes. And eventually I did an internship in Milwaukee with computer science. And I said, yeah, this is fun. I took some master's courses since I was on a scholarship at Wayne State. I took some master's courses while I was still an undergrad and said, yeah, I like this. So that's what I started working in.
So can you talk to me a little bit about your research on how the psychology of learning?
So people learn through practice. Practice is super important for learning, but it has to be the right kind of practice, right? So I was in a choir for many years, a church choir, but I didn't improve all that much because I wasn't getting individualized feedback, right? Nobody's telling me, well, you sound a little flat there, a little sharp, I'm singing, so I'm getting a little bit better just because I'm practicing, but the best practice is when you are challenged. So it's what's called the zone of proximal development. That's the stuff that you can do if you have help, like a tutor or somebody else that could help, you could ask questions of, but you couldn't do on your own. And if you've ever had a one-on-one tutor or coach, that's what they're trying to do always, is push you, challenge you, try to get you a little further than what you could do on your own. So that's part of what I've been trying to do, is how do we create materials that are engaging. Another thing is we want it to be interesting and engaging. We want it to be something that you find that you are allowed to, that you can be creative with. A lot of people think that computing is boring, antisocial, not creative. So I want to flip that, and say, hey, computing is social, creative, interesting. You can do interesting things with it, because it is. Unfortunately, it's often been taught boring, antisocial, not creative.
Yeah, no matter what the perspective is, it is something we cannot avoid in this digital age.
Yeah, I think computing is a great career for a lot of people, and a lot of really interesting things you can do with it, but often it's not taught in a way that really highlights that or showcases that.
Exactly, totally. So that's very interesting for me, the psychology of learning. That reminded me of the book Grit.
Mm-hmm.
It has so much reference to this, why learning in a structured fashion with a coach is important.
Yeah, having role models or people that you can look up to, and having feedback. Immediate feedback is very important for learning so that you can correct things. It's very important to have worked examples plus practice. So examples of how to solve problems followed by practice that are similar to those examples is much better than just making you do a whole lot of work without any examples.
So what do you think the current CS teachers need to make their teaching, their life easier?
Well, right now, one of the things I'm working on is there's CS principles as an advanced placement. So one of the problems in the United States is we have 50 states, and every state makes their own courses. And so if you want to really improve computing education, it's hard to do that at a level where you have to do it state by state. So one way that you really can improve things quickly is through advanced placement, because that's a national exam. It's not a state-by-state thing. And so there's been a big push in the last several years to grow CS Principles as a new advanced placement course. That's an introductory course. It's similar to a college-level course for non-majors, or CS 0 or CS a half. And that's really grown very quickly, that course. And it's reaching a more diverse audience than the CSA course, which is equivalent to a college-level CS1 or a first course for computing majors. But there's a big gap between what you need to know to teach CS Principles and what you need to know to teach CSA. So one of the things I'm trying to do is fill that gap a bit and say, okay, I have teachers that are maybe learning how to teach CS Principles, where they're maybe using a drag and drop language like Scratch or Snap or App Inventor, and they want to get to teaching object-oriented programming in Java. That's a big jump. So I've been working on interactive ebooks and content and online courses so that teachers could take a Python course with the support of our interactive ebook and perhaps an online course and feel comfortable with teaching that kind of content and maybe integrate that into their CS principles. And then that way and then we've also been creating a course, an online ebook for CS Awesome, which is for the CSA course. We already have 50,000 registered users that are taking CSA using that ebook. It's a College Board endorsed curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's really awesome. So you have touched on this a little bit. How do you think our current CS12 education system is in comparison with the rest of the world?
We're behind. So, a lot of the world, we are making progress. We have made progress over the last several years. There is more of a push to have computing available, but we are so far behind. Many of the other countries, particularly like Israel has had rigorous computer science in its high schools for a lot longer than we have. And it's basically a course that's on par with chemistry, biology, and physics, and it's taught by people who have CS degrees. Whereas in our country, we are not having computing taught by people with CS degrees for the most part. We're trying to play catch up, and then we're not requiring anybody to take it in many places. But in other countries, they are requiring it to be offered. They're requiring people to take it. Finland has a part of their curriculum from a very young age. India has a lot more gender parity in computing. So there's also countries that are doing way better with gender than we are.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, if I think back being an Indian, yeah. I mean, math, computer science is like any other subject, and generally girls do better in their teenage years in grades and all.
Well, yeah, in one of the countries, I'm trying to think which one it is now, Malaysia, it's actually majority female rather than majority male in computing. And and when they found out that it was male in the Western world, they're like, why? We think of it as like sewing, right? It's indoor, it's detail work. It's not difficult, dangerous outdoor work. Why is it male? What's male about it?
Yeah, and the convenience you can work.
You can work from home. You can, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So if you had a magic wand to wave to improve the CS education system, what would you do with it?
Well, we do need to improve our teaching of computer science, and we need to improve our curriculum for computer science. There are efforts underway for that, but one of our biggest problems in the U.S. is this lack of teacher licensing or endorsements and the lack of education schools covering it as a subject for future teachers. And we've been playing catch up trying to get teachers that are already certified, trained in how to teach computer science, but we're never going to reach what we need to reach if that's all we do. We have to get people covering this in their teacher preparation programs. It has to be something you can be certified in.
There are certifications.
Not very
right,
many, in only a few states.
Oh, really? Because I'm from Texas, I know.
Texas is one of the places that does have certification, but it's often not also in their schools of ed that they're.
Yeah, they put anyway.
Yeah. So we're instead of treating it as a real subject that people should learn, we're treating it as an add-on, typically.
Right. So you're suggesting we have to put it like for someone to become a teacher, computer science should be, for them to be able to teach computer science should be one of their required courses.
Yeah, so like I said, in Israel, you can't teach computer science in high school unless you have a computer science degree. There's no way we're doing that in this country so far, but that's where it is in another country.
Right, but like me coming from the corporate world, right? Like when I had to hire 200 people on my team in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, I was never able to find enough people. It's like we had 500 million budget. It was never money.
Well, yes, this is one of the things that people don't realize. A lot of people realize that there's a lot of jobs in STEM, But most of those STEM jobs are actually computing jobs. And that's what people don't get. People are like, oh yeah, STEM, we should all do STEM. Well, over half those jobs are actually computing jobs.
Totally right. Like in people in education, they hear so much about STEM, but only 8% of STEM graduates are in computer science, but 71% of STEM jobs are in computer science.
Exactly. We have so many
Yeah,
women that major in biology because they think they're going to go on to med school. But if they don't go to med school, what are you going to do with it? So,
yeah,
we have more people
right.
majoring in
Yeah,
biology than we need. We have less people majoring in computer science than we need.
totally agree. Yep. Yeah, I can go on a tangent on this. Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not gonna take more time. I know you are changing the world. So
Oh, well,
yeah, thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
thank you. Yeah, we're trying.
And Dr. Erickson, like if any of our listener would like to reach out to you, is there, this is totally optional question, is there a contact
Sure. My
email?
email. I don't know if you want me just to say it out loud. It's the first letter. So
Yeah.
it's my it's like Barbar the elephant. It's BARBARER at umich.edu, and I'm putting it in the chat window too.
Okay, so it's BARBARER at
Yep.
umich.edu. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to, a final message to our listeners?
Well, it is an exciting time to be in computing education. When I started working in computing education years ago, nearly 20 years ago now. Yikes. Well, more than 20 years ago, probably. But, in that time, I was one of the few people trying to get teachers, trying to do teacher professional development, you know, and then over the years, now I see this, it's really grown. There's a lot more people in computing education, a lot more people creating computer curricula. So it's really great to see that it's grown, but I worry about we're not where we need to be. And people sometimes celebrate a little early and go, oh, yay, we have more people taking AP computer science principles than take CSA. Well, that's great, but we're still nowhere near where we need to be. And I want to make sure we get to where we need to be, and we're not reaching everybody. People do not have equal access to computing, and I think they should.